It's time to take a look at the latest Democrat candidates for president. Among the frontrunners so far is Bernie Sanders, who announced his new campaign slogan, "Forward into the Past." The sprightly 77-year-old Stalinist dramatized his entry into the race by taking a campaign worker into the cellar and shooting him in the back of the head to remind the public how things were done back in the Soviet Union when he was honeymooning there during his youth. Sanders is running on a platform of destroying the American economy and creating a new American life of breadlines and drudgery until the inevitable collapse into chaos. Another Democrat hopeful is Senator Kamala Harris, who announced her candidacy with an all-girls sleepover with a group of giggling CNN reporters, during which they tried on some cute clothes, smoked some dope, and dished the dirt on whether party muck-a-muck Willie Brown was good in bed when he cheated on his wife, slept with Kamala, and then gave her coveted political appointments. Harris also released her music mood tape before detailing her platform of universal free poverty, saying that every American had a right to live on a street paved with homeless people with at least one cat to cook for dinner in every trash fire that kept them warm. Third in line is Senator Elizabeth Warren, whose campaign slogan is, "I'm not lying about my ancestry anymore." Warren announced her candidacy with a touching speech about how her mammy and pawpaw would sit around the campfire under the totem pole, telling the kids tales about their struggle to get married amidst all the prejudice against Native Americans, which they'd heard about for some reason. Mammy and pawpaw were two of the biggest liars I ever met, Warren told an audience of U.S. cavalrymen, and if I'm elected, I will hunt them down and make them pay for their crimes. So far, approximately 417 Democrats have announced they won't be running. The rest are in. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shape, tipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
All right. It is a cliche to say that Americans are a litigious people who like to sue each other. It's also not actually true. In the Western world, we rank somewhere in the middle in litigiositude, somewhere between the people in France who are too busy drinking and screwing each other to go to court much, and the crazy Jews in Israel, who, as we know, are all lawyers. It's a joke. But it does sometimes feel that Americans sue each other over stuff that shouldn't be decided in court, like whether you need a warning on your coffee to tell you it's hot because it's coffee and you're an idiot, or whether you should be compensated after you got scared at an amusement park Halloween funhouse. The answer is no, and you're an idiot. Two important lawsuits are headed for the courts right now, but it's possible that the issues at hand should be decided not by lawyers, but by sensible adults in reasonable conversation. So my suggestion is, instead of suing, we should travel back to ancient Greece, find some sensible adults, and bring them into the present. Failing that, I guess we're going to court, and we'll talk about it. It's also mailbag day. You'll be excited to know, because up until now, you've had all your problems, but now all your problems will go away because you'll ask me questions and I will solve them. Also, we want to talk about ExpressVPN. No matter what you are doing online, if you're making a purchase or simply accessing your email, all of that could put your private information at risk, and that's why I use ExpressVPN. It is great. Noel's recommended it to me. It's the one thing he's done for me that I haven't tried to get revenge for, because it actually works great. It's easy to use. It has easy-to-use apps that run seamlessly in the background of my computer, phone, and tablet, and it takes one click to turn them on. ExpressVPN secures and anonymizes your internet browsing by encrypting your data and hiding your public IP address, and it costs less than $7 a month. ExpressVPN is rated the #1 VPN service by TechRadar and comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. It takes about 2 seconds to get this thing going. It's really worth it. Protect your online activity today and find out how you can get 3 months free at expressvpn.com/Klavan. That's expressvpn.com/Klavan for 3 months free with a 1-year package. Visit expressvpn.com/Klavan to learn more and encrypt your data so no one can find out how you spell Klavan. Actually, it's Klavan. And speaking of Klavan, Another Kingdom, the novel, the first novel in the trilogy, will be out on March 5th. So you only have a little time left to pre-order it and get all the free stuff. There's lots of free stuff. My favorite free thing they're giving you is a novella-length prequel that tells the origin story of one of the major characters in the story. But there's also pictures you can put on your phone and all kinds of a video and stuff like that, and a map, I believe, of the kingdom. Go to anotherkingdombook.com. Anotherkingdombook.com. You can buy it there. It'll take you to Amazon. But if you've already gotten it at Amazon, you can go there and register, and they will give you the free stuff for pre-ordering. Please do that because it also helps the book and it helps move the book up the rankings on Amazon, which helps me. So, 2 lawsuits. One of them, a really interesting lawsuit as far as I'm concerned. Nick Sandmann, or lawyers for Nick Sandmann, have filed a $250 million lawsuit against the Washington Post for defamation for the things they said. This is Nick Sandmann is the Covington school kid who was confronted by that supposed native elder and was called all kinds of things. Was told that just wearing a MAGA hat was a bad thing, and that he had a smirk on his face that made him just showed what a bigot he was. He was just absolutely slandered all over the press. His lawyers are promising this is just the first suit and there are more to come. And what happens usually is a lot of newspapers get away with saying stuff about people because the Supreme Court has basically decided that if you're a famous person, right, or if you are somebody who has injected themselves into a big news story, okay, then they can't just say that they lied about you. They have to show that they lied about you maliciously, that they had a reason to really want to destroy you, to hurt you. They didn't just make a mistake. Very, very hard to prove. Now, personally, I think Donald Trump can sue all these people and prove malice, but obviously that's not something we want people to do. We don't want people suing newspapers because they attack the powerful, even if they're wrong. I mean, even if their stories are just, like it's just biased, like CNN or New York Times or the Washington Post or ABC. Or NBC or basically everybody, but still, this is different. This is different. A lawyer for the Covington kids, Robert Barnes, explains the rules in this case.
Because these are all private citizens, and in many cases minors and kids, the law is that it's saying anything false about them is libel, and you don't have a defense of actual malice. It's all you have to prove is negligence. So a lot of these journalists have been saying false statements about these kids, false statements about the kids that are at the Lincoln Memorial, false statements about kids that were in various photographs related to the school, slurring and libeling the entire school and all the alumni for the school. And all you have to prove is that they were negligent in doing so. And by this standpoint, by this point in time, it is clear that anyone who continues to lie and libel about these kids has done so illegally and can be sued for it.
And, they gave them a chance to apologize, which they didn't do. Obviously, they're going to stand on their First Amendment rights. It is a big issue in England, where I lived for many years. In England, it's much easier to sue people. You just can't lie about people. One of my favorite lawsuits was a lawsuit by Elton John, who felt he had been lied about. And when he won the lawsuit, he came out and he said, poof is a British word for a gay guy. It's kind of a slur. And he came out and he said, you can call me a fat, untalented poof, but you can't lie about me, which I just thought was one of the great lines of all time. But this is something, Donald Trump has been saying we ought to relax the libel laws. Clarence Thomas and Antonin Scalia actually agreed with that. They said that people should not be protected, they should not be disallowed from lawsuit just because they're famous. It's too broad, and people should not be able to lie about you no matter who you are. Anyway, this suit, though, is a big, big takedown of the Washington Post, okay? It says, it called it the first and loudest media bully. It says in a span of 3 days in January of this year, commencing on January 19th, the Post engaged in a modern day form of McCarthyism by competing with CNN and NBC, among others, to claim leadership of a mainstream and social media mob of bullies which attacked, vilified, and threatened Nicholas Sandmann, an innocent secondary school child. And it goes on and says, let me just find this. Oh, yeah, here it is. It said they ignored basic journalist standards because it wanted to advance its well-known and easily documented biased agenda against President Donald J. Trump. So they are really going after the Post for being the Washington Post. They are going after the Washington Post for being the Washington Post. Washington Post, where democracy dies in slavering hatred of Donald Trump. Basically, they're saying this was part of the agenda, but this guy is an innocent kid, and he got caught in the crossfire while they were trying to take down the president. That's a really interesting lawsuit. And the guys. Well, here's the guy, the actual lawyer, McMurdy, I believe Todd McMurdy, saying this has had real life consequences.
People were driving by, media vans were showing up. There were all types of Twitter threats. And so they basically, left their house in an emergency state and went and stayed with a friend. After that, our local Commonwealth attorney, who is Rob Sanders, had to coordinate a fairly extensive security project for them so that he was in touch with our Homeland Security people here in this region. And also he was, checking on threats, providing for police protection when they did move back to their home. And thank God at this point, a lot of that has calmed down.
So, the problem they have, as I keep saying, is that they are surrounded, the Washington Post, all these news people are surrounded by people exactly like them, who think exactly like them. They don't know that being for abortion is an opinion. They don't know that, that saying that not every conservative is a racist, or that conservative ideas themselves aren't racist. They don't know that their definition of racism is a left-wing definition, and that the right is not being racist when they disagree with it. They don't know that, because there's a great story at CNN, and I'm reading this from the Daily Beast, a liberal paper. CNN staffers are upset and confused about the I know I don't want to hurt your feelings. I know you're brushing away a little tear that the CNN staffers are upset and confused, but wait till you hear what it's about. They're confused about the network's decision to hire a partisan political operative to oversee its 2020 campaign reporting. On Tuesday, a CNN spokesperson confirmed to the Daily Beast that the network has hired Republican political advisor Sarah Isgur as the politics editor helming CNN's 2020 coverage. The move was first reported by Politico. Throughout her decade-long career in Republican politics, Isgur has served as an advisor to Ted Cruz and Mitt Romney, and was Carly Fiorina's deputy campaign manager. Until last year, Isgur was a top spokesman for former Attorney General Jeff Sessions' Department of Justice. A CNN spokesperson said Isgur will not be involved in the network's DOJ coverage, but will guide TV and digital coverage of the election. It's extremely demoralizing for everyone here, one network editorial staffer told the Daily Beast. People are generally confused. Another editorial employee said, it's very bizarre. Okay, it's very bizarre. Now, this is CNN, right, where Chris Cuomo of the Cuomo dynasty, the left-wing Democrat Cuomo dynasty, is a commentator, but he's absolutely, completely, non-biased. There's no problem there. This is the thing. They don't know. George Stephanopoulos is the chief newsman at a major network, and I know I kind of use him as a whipping boy, but still, it is amazing, an amazing act of corruption to appoint this guy to head your news staff on a network. This is not cable TV. This is a network. I've played this before. I'm going to play it again. Here is George Stephanopoulos during the Bill Clinton campaign. His job was to defend Bill Clinton from what they called, their words, bimbo eruptions, namely women who came forward saying Bill was chasing them around the room or even raping them, they were popping up all over because Bill mistreated women. And this was what he was doing. And with Hillary's absolute encouragement and conviction and involvement, here is just a video that they were proud of at the time of him intimidating a reporter into silence.
I guarantee you that if you do this, you'll never work in Democratic politics again. Maybe you don't want to. I'm not saying it matters. You will be embarrassed before the National Press Corps. People will think, nobody will believe you, and people will think you're scummy. The alternative is you don't do it. It causes you some temporary pain with people who tomorrow aren't going to matter. And you have a campaign that understands that in a difficult time, you did something right. And that's important. I mean, it doesn't mean anything, or we can't do anything for you specifically or anything like that, but you know that you did the right thing and that you didn't dishonor yourself.
That's Stephanopoulos, who heads ABC News. Maggie Haberman, who was exposed in an email hack as a friendly for the Clinton campaign, who they used to plant friendly stories, is now the White House correspondent. Ran a ridiculous piece I think it was this morning, about Trump is trying to stop the Russia investigation, which was basically about Trump complaining about the Russia investigation. All these people left the news business and went to join the Obama administration, and then some of them came back. Former Time magazine correspondent was Jay Carney. He was the Obama spokesman. ABC News' Linda Douglas joined the White House to help push Obamacare, and then returned to the Atlantic. The Chicago Tribune's Jill Zuckman, a political correspondent, became spokeswoman for Ray LaHood, the transportation secretary. Jim Scudo, who left ABC News to work for U.S. Ambassador to China, Gary Locke, before returning to a media job at where? CNN. They do not know what they do not know. They do not know they're inside the bubble. And it's not a bubble, it's an iron lung. They don't know that they are surrounded by people who agree with them. My only problem with this lawsuit is that I don't like to see the press on trial. I want the press to be free, even though I despise them. Even though I despise how they use their freedom, I want to defend that freedom. That freedom is more important than the fact that they're corrupt and despicable. I want them to reform themselves. I think the guys have a case on this. I think they have a good case. I think they're doing something that, in a way, needs to be done. I wish it didn't have to go through the courts, because I do not want to see our First Amendment rights abridged in any way. I wish this were the kind of thing where the lawyers had gone to them and said, you messed up, and what we want you to do is hire some conservatives and have a balanced report, and they did it. That would be reasonable adults talking reasonably and taking reasonable action. When it goes to the courts, it's dangerous, but I think they have a case. Joybird, Joybird is this revolution on online furniture shopping. Joybird is the company behind it all. Joybird believes that you should never settle when it comes to your home furnishings, and that you should always have the freedom to be boldly original. From idea to reality, they empower you to create the space and furniture that brings you joy, hence the name Joybird. With Joybird, you get one-of-a-kind furniture made to your unique taste. I tried it, got a beautiful, beautiful chair. It's perfect, and they deliver it. It's really good, from mid-century modern to contemporary classics, customizable in an amazing array of fabric choices, from rich leather and plush velvets to every color imaginable. Free personal design consultants to help nail down your perfect design. All of it online, and you get it for a year, 365-day home trial. Skip the furniture store and just bring the showroom home. You can see how Joybird is revolutionizing online furniture shopping. Create the furniture that brings you joy today at joybird.com/Klavan. Go to joybird.com/Klavan and receive an exclusive offer for 25% off your first order by using the code Klavan. And I know what you're thinking. I know what you're wondering. You're wondering, how do you spell Klavan? It's Klavan, no E's. In Klavan, I just make it look this easy. For the second case we want to talk about is the lawsuit about the national emergency declaration by the president. He's being sued, I think, by 16 states. We have with us, as always, she doesn't even leave anymore. She just actually sleeps in this studio. Jenna Ellis, the constitutional law attorney. She contributes to the Washington Examiner, the Federalist, and someplace called the Daily Wire. But that's just, when she's slumming, basically. She's a frequent guest on Fox and the author of The Legal Basis for a Moral Constitution, a guide for Christians to understand America's current constitutional crisis. And Jenna, I hope you noticed we're back in the studio. We're back. They've actually brought us out of bin Laden's cave back to the studio.
Which is great, and the couches are so much more comfortable there. So I really appreciate that we're back in studio.
It's also not 30 degrees and it stinks. It really stank in there. And I told the guys, don't worry, we're leaving the studio, but we're leaving the outside studio, but we'll always have our mesothelioma or whatever.
There you go. That's another potential lawsuit. So there you go. Yeah. Exactly.
So, let's talk about this. It's like 16 states are suing the president over his declaration of a national emergency. Do they have a case?
No, absolutely not. Okay. And what's so sad about this is that the states are really filing this, and this was instigated by the Attorney General of California, who is known to be a liberal activist and has lost actually a lot of cases recently. The NIFLA case that went in front of the Supreme Court, that was about California's controversial free speech case for crisis pregnancy centers. That one, NIFLA versus Becerra, that one specifically was another case that he wanted to just take and was absolutely activist of California. And so at his instigation, now he's roped in about 16 states for this lawsuit. But the federal government and the state governments have a separation of powers pursuant to the Constitution. And that's the way that our constitutional republic works. And so if the states don't like the fact that the president can declare a national emergency pursuant to authority that Congress has given them, their remedy is to go and lobby Congress. And this is why, by the way, I think that the 17th Amendment should be repealed and state legislatures should be able to appoint and then recall senators. And that was one of the ways of having that check and balance on congressional authority. But because of the 17th Amendment, we don't have that anymore. But the remedy here is not a lawsuit. It's to go through the viable constitutional mechanism.
So you're not arguing about the whether the national emergency is constitutional. You're arguing that they have no standing. But don't they have standing if he's going to build part of the wall in California? I mean, can't they say, well, our land is going to suffer and there's going to be problems here?
I don't think that they have standing even in that instance. And what about, so Colorado, my home state, is joining that, and we're certainly not a border state. So what standing would they have? You know, so this is it's just a political maneuver here. But even for the states that are on the border, this is again why immigration and naturalization, as well as border security and military operations, are specifically given to the federal government, because the states are part of the United States of America, and they still are under Article 4 when they join the Union, and they're still subservient and under the U.S. Constitution as supreme law of the land. And so they don't have any standing to challenge what subject matter our U.S. Constitution provides to the federal government to determine. If they don't like policy, well, they can go just like any other regular citizen can and go and lobby Congress and go through those mechanisms. But they can't challenge something simply because they don't like the policy and say that it's unconstitutional. Because remember, the liberals use that term unconstitutional to mean I don't like your policy. The actual definition of it means, can the federal government use its specific limited authority in this particular way? And all of the law and the Constitution says absolutely.
So about this law, the emergency declaration, every emergency declaration up till now, I mean, not everyone, but that most of them have been about stopping tyrants and hostile countries from moving funds around. This is really different. I mean, it's different in kind, and it feels like he is expanding, maybe not the law, maybe not the written law, but it feels like he's expanding the use of it. Is there any problem constitutionally in your mind? I mean, if the lawsuit goes forward and they say, oh, well, California does have standing, there was a very funny clip of Trump saying, yeah, they'll sue, and then we'll go to this court and that court. Finally, we'll go to the Supreme Court, and then we'll win. Will he win at the Supreme Court level?
He should. If this case actually reaches the merits and they don't dismiss it on a procedural issue like standing and just say, you know, you can't sue on this basis anyway. If the Supreme Court reaches the merits, then absolutely. I mean, a declaration of national emergency pursuant to the 1976 law, as well as others, that Congress never said first, here is the limits of what you can and can't declare a national emergency on. That's implicit in the Constitution anyway, what powers are actually given to the federal government. So when Nancy Pelosi and others are saying, well, all of a sudden, you know, this will open the floodgates that he can declare, future president can declare a national emergency on gun control or healthcare or climate change. Well, that's just ridiculous, because none of those subject matters are given to the federal government as limited powers to do anything about anyway. So we don't have that problem. But even if we reach the merits here, we still have precedent from President Reagan as well as President George W. Bush right after 9/11, temporarily declaring a national emergency following 9/11. So we have some analogous precedent, but we also have the law that if Congress wants to change, it absolutely can. And I think that that's a legitimate question for Congress to consider, but not after the fact and not just because they don't like this particular president. Yeah,
the New York Times had a really interesting line. I mean, I don't think that they were lying. I just think that they were wrong, where they said basically Congress could override what he's doing, which they just can't. I mean, Congress cannot veto the president. The president can veto Congress.
Right. And there's actually I believe it's a 1981 Supreme Court case that dealt with this very question that said if Congress has delegated specific limited authority to the president under their own acts, then if the president decides to use that power that's been delegated in a certain policy way, Congress then can't go back and veto it because they're basically circumventing their own law that they created. So that we already have Supreme Court precedent on that level as well. And I wrote a piece just yesterday in Washington Examiner that discusses this, and the headline is, sorry, Democrats, President Trump isn't creating this president that's just going to open the floodgates. But I think people really need to understand the Constitution in context and understand what a declaration of national emergency is and what it is not, and also what an executive order is and what it is not.
So my last question, just as one conservative to another, setting the law aside, does it bother you to see Trump use the executive power in this way, and compare it for a minute to Obama's executive orders? I mean, it is different in kind from Obama's executive orders, but it kind of bothers me in the same way, just instinctively.
Well, it doesn't bother me because he's actually using his authority pursuant to a subject matter that is given to the federal government, where President Obama was issuing executive orders on education, on social justice issues, on things that absolutely were outside the scope of what the federal government is vested with in power. And so when conservatives are objecting to President Obama, we're not objecting to the use of executive orders, period. We're objecting to what is he actually doing with the executive order. And here it is very different in kind because the subject matter is different. National security, border protection, defense spending, those are all things that the federal government constitutionally has power to determine. So it doesn't bother me.
Jenna Ellis, always great to see you, the author of The Legal Basis for a Moral Constitution. You can see her just about everywhere, but why would you when you can always see her here? I think
Absolutely. And great to see you again, Drew.
It's always great to talk to you. Thanks, Jenna.
Thanks.
All right, we got the mailbag coming up. You want to come over? Oh, my God. Now I can't even remember what I was saying. We got the mailbag coming up, but I got to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. Come over to dailywire.com and subscribe. Then you can be in the next mailbag. It's a little stuffy and uncomfortable in there, but you do get to ask questions. It's only a lousy $10 a month, $100 for a year. We solve all your problems. What else could you ask for? And again, please go to anotherkingdombook.com and pre-order the first novel in the series today for a lot of cool free stuff. Come on over to dailywire.com.